Hello, welcome to episode 7 of the Top 2 Inches Rugby podcast, sponsored by I Spy Surveys, the go-to specialist survey and inspection company based in Exeter, Devon. What is going to be on episode 7? So, this week there is a massive amount of rugby to have a look at, dissect, and find out what happened. We're going to check in on the Tri-Nations and Argentina's opening game against the All Blacks. We'll also have a look at the Allianz Premier 15 for the ladies. The Red Roses were also in action in a autumn international series against the French over in Grenoble. We will also obviously have a look at the Eight Nations Championship, which kicked off this Friday night at the Aviva Stadium in Ireland, where Ireland took on Wales. It's not looking good for the Welsh, if I'm honest. The Premiership season gets underway next week, so we will check in and look at the chances of the remaining contenders, my thoughts around what might happen next season. Fantasy rugby is also due to start next week, so I might give a little bit of information away on who's in my squad. Equally, I might not, because obviously Ollie could be or does listen to this podcast and probably will want to copy what I do. We'll finish up with a bit of a rugby fact and look ahead to the following week and what potentially might happen. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, it is at the Top 2 Inches RP, and obviously you can go there, leave me messages, ask me questions, which people have already done, which I'm extremely grateful for, and generally follow my thoughts around what is happening in the game. As I said, this is episode 7 of the Top 2 Inches Rugby podcast. So despite the Red Roses being away in France, in Grenoble, playing a autumn sort of mini-series against their French counterparts, the Allianz Premier 15 League continued this week. First game I want to have a look at is the DMP Durham Sharks against Exeter Chiefs, with the Exeter ladies winning 31-6, and that made it two wins in a row, and they also got the bonus point at the Northern Echo Arena. First half, I think, from the little limited highlights that I've seen, Exeter were very much in control and scoring tries at will, but thankfully after the break the Sharks, they'll be a little bit more encouraged. They had a better second half performance, shoring up their defence and keeping the Exeter ladies at bay for the remainder of the match. It's the first time that I think the Sharks haven't conceded over 50 points in a game. Obviously, last week I kind of said that it was a bit of a worry and what the impact it would have on team morale to continue to be handed out, ton beatings by, as they were the week before with the Wasp ladies. Harlequins put 100 points past them in the opening game of the season, so it was definitely a better performance and hopefully a move in the right direction for the Durham Sharks. The next game we saw Gloucester Hartpury against Bristol Bears. Hartpury beating the Bears 28-3 and taking the bonus point in the West Country derby. Game started off with trading, a few penalties here and there. Hurd then picked up a loose ball and fed her centre partner Jones, who flew over for the visitors' first try. Then we had more scores from Blackburn on the half-hour mark. But then the visitors took a 13-0 lead into the break, with Fahy crossed over early in the second half after more good work from Jones, and Bona stuck a 53-minute try to secure the bonus point for Hartpury. Bears, I thought, were looking better, but clearly Hartpury, who lost last week, have got themselves back on track and are obviously looking to move up the leaderboard with that victory. Worcester Warriors taking on Loughborough Lightning. Both sides the previous week had lost games, and I think we're both looking for the win. Loughborough Lightning ran out 20-8 victors over the Worcester Warriors, and it was a quite close affair really at six ways. There was a bit of a deadlock to begin with, taking about 26 minutes for any points to be scored, and that was a penalty. Abby Brown then extended the lead for the Lightning with a try after some quick handling from Scotland international Rachel Malcolm and Rhonda Lloyd, and then Lloyd would go on to score again 60 seconds later after a break from Olivia Jones. Emma Hardy scored Lightning's third under the post, but Warriors had the last say when the scrum half Matteson crossed over after a quick penalty. Good to see Loughborough Lightning back on track. As we know, they are in the top part of the table, with Worcester being down the bottom. Potentially they would have wanted to score more points, but obviously without the likes of Emily Scarrett in the team, it was down to the girls that were left behind to get that victory, which is the most important aspect of the game. Interesting game between Saracens ladies and Wasp ladies, and Saracens only just coming out on top 33-27. Saracens, they came out blazing, and two well worked tries in the opening 5 minutes from back row duo, kind of got them off to that early lead. It was a very close game, lots of passion from both sides, and to be honest, I was surprised that Wasps ran Saracens as close as they have, because obviously Saracens are quite a dominant team in the league. They're second at the moment, but fair play to Wasp ladies for pushing the champions all the way. They do maintain. Saracens maintained their unbeaten run, and obviously picked up the bonus point by scoring 4 tries, as did Wasps. Harlequins ladies against Sale Sharks. This was quite a one-sided affair. Again, having a number of people out on duty for the Red Roses. Harlequins ran out victorious 31-0. And obviously maintain their top of the table position, but also the fact that they haven't lost any games this season. Disappointing for Sale Sharks not to get on the board, but they are towards the bottom of the table, and obviously it's top near bottom, one of those sort of situations. So we will have to see how they bounce back next week. That was the roundup of the Allianz Premier 15 for the ladies. So the English Red Roses obviously travelled to Grenoble in France this weekend, where they took on their French counterparts in a back-to-back tests, and they got off to a successful win with a 33-10 victory. Obviously, this test match is very welcome due to the Ladies Six Nations matches that were postponed. And obviously the qualifiers leading up to the 2021 World Cup due to COVID, and it gave the international players an opportunity to play. As we know, England had recently secured their second Grand Slam victory following a 54-0 win against Italy. And obviously we're going into this game hoping for further success. I think what was quite interesting was that either through injury or decision making by the coaches, a few of the more experienced lady players were left at home. Obviously there was no Sarah Hunter. I think she is out injured. The decision to leave Katie Day-McLean at home and bring in Helena Rowlands was a good one, because Helena Rowlands, from what I saw, had a fantastic game at number 10 and really bossed the players around and bossed the England team and the French team, and it holds up well that England have someone of her quality to eventually step into that number 10 jersey. Obviously, Emily Scarrett was on form again. She kicked 18 points from the throughout the game. Really good tries by Jess Breach and Alex Matthews in the second half in a short space of time, which really you could see knocked the French ladies for 6 a little bit. Obviously added on to Amy Cocaine's first half try. Interesting in the scrums, I thought that France were quite dominant, but England, at points managed to get them going backwards as well. It was a real contest in the scrums. The French ladies are quite technically good from what I could see, and that was an area of pressure for them. And obviously the French, being the French, they wanted to play. They at times they ran from potentially places where you shouldn't run from. And I think it was at half-time, it was about 10-all. But like I said, in the second half, in a kind of short period of time, England scored two fantastic tries, pushing their lead, and then built on that lead, which they maintained right till the end of the game. And like I said, taking the win 33-10. Obviously, next week will be the follow-up game. So hopefully the Red Roses will be able to win the series 2-0. Obviously, I'm imagining the French would like to paint a different picture, and obviously they will be looking to, hopefully from their perspective, beat the English women and secure the victory. England, obviously, following that victory, are now ranked the #1 team in the world, which is a fantastic achievement, and massive credit goes to the players, the coaches, and all that is involved with the Red Roses. So it's the rugby fact part of the show, and this is one that is based between England and Scotland. And surprisingly, the oldest international trophy is actually the Calcutta Cup. And on Christmas Day in 1872, a game of rugby between 20 players representing England on one side and 20 representing Scotland on the other was played in Calcutta, India. I didn't actually know that it was played in India, which is a bit slow for me, really, because obviously Calcutta is in India, and that would make complete sense. But I also didn't know that it was played in 1872 on Christmas Day, which is, so that's quite an interesting little fact for those out there, which I'd imagine potentially most of you knew. But if you didn't, there you go. Another rugby fact from the Top 2 Inches Rugby Podcast. Okay, so it is time to have a bit of a conversation about the Tri-Nations opening match for Argentina against New Zealand, which took place in Australia on neutral ground. Well, to be fair, like most people, I did not see this result coming. It was without doubt a fantastic performance from Argentina. And literally, I don't think anybody in the world would have said or placed a bet on Argentina to take the win. If you had, then fair play, because I wonder what the odds would have been for an Argentina victory. Now, it was surprising enough that Argentina won. But I think what really surprised me when I looked into it a little bit more, and some of the kind of facts were coming out, was the fact that Argentina actually hadn't played for, I think it was 402 days. They had limited preparation time to get themselves ready to play the All Blacks. Which also kind of fuels the kind of rationale from Rassie Erasmus around why South Africa dropped out of the series, because he didn't think they would have enough game time to be ready to compete at a good level. Now, looking at social media and obviously Twitter, a lot of people were saying, the best back row in the world for the Argentinians, on the rise and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, I can't deny it was a fantastic game, but they will obviously need to back that up next week against Australia. I think that, it was a victory for the ages, really. They've never beaten New Zealand. It was the first time in their history, with Sanchez scored every point for the Pumas, and they won 25-15. I think what you saw from Argentina was just an attitude. They were nasty, they were in the All Blacks' faces, and they clearly wanted to win, and no player depicted that more than the skipper. Pronounced it right, is it Matera? And obviously there's been the social media about him having a chat with, or a bit of a telling off by the referee, who Angus Gardner, who I actually thought was quite rude. I think he just felt that Angus Gardner was talking down a bit to him, and realistically the comeback that he had about the All Blacks not showing any respect, and how he is playing for his country, what a comeback. It was a fantastic comment, and you could clearly see that the Argentinians were up for the game. What does it mean for the tournament itself? So my understanding is that the All Blacks have now lost 2 games, and obviously Australia have won 1, Argentina have won 1, which leaves the tournament quite open for a potential winner, I guess. But like I said, Argentina really will need to back that fantastic performance against the All Blacks with another fantastic performance next week against the Wallabies. Just a little bit of stats here. So it ended a 35-year wait to win against New Zealand, with the previous 29 meetings bringing only 1 draw for Argentina, which was back in 1985. So that does add even more emphasis on the display that the Pumas put in. And to be fair, the All Blacks didn't really have an answer. They just continued to try and play their game plan. They didn't adapt, I didn't feel, to what was in front of them. And at the end of the day, if you're not winning or not securing good ball and running your plays, then you have to do something different to potentially go out and win the game. And the All Blacks just looked like they didn't have a clue what to do. And they really didn't look themselves in the game. They looked flustered. They looked like they were clueless. They were getting narky. Dane Coles, like I said, giving one of the Argentinians a bit of a slap in the face. Just not the All Blacks that we would expect. It is going to be a very interesting remainder of the tournament. And we could potentially see a different name on the trophy maybe this year. We'll have to wait and see. The Eight Nations Cup kicked off last Friday night at the Aviva Stadium in Ireland, where we saw a game between Ireland and Wales, with Ireland coming out on top 32-9. It's the longest kind of running losing streak for the Welsh. And people are literally calling for Pivac's head at the moment. I got the opportunity to sit back and watch the game. The missus was quite happy for me to sit and have a watch. And I thought that Ireland were dominant in the first half. They literally came out of the blocks flying, taking it right at the Welsh. It's quite niggly to begin with, a few little scrappy dappy doos. Alan Wynne-Jones and Peter O'Mahony obviously came toe to toe. No punches were thrown, standard kind of handbags at dawn, but it certainly had a bit of fire to the game. I think the Irish team was strong up front, with their 2 props dominating in the scrum, to the point where I think it was the Welsh tight head Kari was taken off because he was literally the loose head, getting pummeled by Porter. And it didn't get much better for the substitute that came on. It was quite close at half time, and Wales kind of got themselves a little bit back into the game and brought a little bit more grunt to it. And I was kind of thinking that it could be a game of 2 halves and Wales might come out on top, but Ireland kind of slowly pulled away. Their power game was just immense. Gibson's Park at 9 was outstanding. They did lose Johnny Sexton early on, and then also lost his replacement Billy Burns. So Conor Murray ended up paying the last sort of 20 minutes, 15 minutes at fly half and took on the kicking duties. He went quite well. Like I said, it was a truly dominant performance by the Irish, and Wales really are in a pit at the moment. They just look directionless. I think Alan Wynne-Jones is probably, he's definitely on the way down. Don't get me wrong, he's been a quality player for England, for Ireland, and the British Lions, but he just didn't play well, in my opinion. There were no real standout players for the Welsh. It was just collectively very poor. And as I said, social media is lighting up saying that Pivac should be gone. I'm not sure what he can do to turn things around. Wales do play Georgia next time out, so they will be hoping to rectify that loss. Moving on to the Saturday, we had a Group B game between Italy and Scotland, with Scotland coming out on top 28-17. Italy were right up for this game. I genuinely thought that Italy were gonna beat Scotland this time around. They pretty much held on to the lead till the kind of dying minutes, where Scotland kind of edged ahead. Italy again showed a lot of determination, power for quite a young team, and it was quite impressive, to be fair. I think Scotland, they never looked out of the game. You always kind of thought they might come back. They got their foothold in. The scrums were pretty even, I felt, but it was to be fair, it was quite an enjoyable game to watch. Next week Italy will be taking on Fiji, and Scotland will be taking on France at Murrayfield. So Scotland will be hoping that they can continue their winning ways, and I think Italy will go well against Fiji, given their performances against Scotland. I'm hopeful they won't just be the whipping boys for Group B this time. The France and Fiji game, unfortunately, was cancelled due to outbreaks, I think, in both teams for COVID. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that the Fijian captain Randrandra had tested positive, and a couple of the French players had tested positive. I'm not 100% sure how that is going to impact on the points and the scoring system in the competition, but it's certainly sad to see that this bloody pandemic has caused one of the games to be cancelled straight off the bat. Really disappointing. And obviously, I think it obviously will affect their selection choices for their games this weekend. I can't see how, the game was supposed to be played on the 15th, was cancelled, and then 6 days later they're both due to play again. I'm not sure how that works. So I'm assuming that the players that had tested positive have self-isolated away from the team. Some intense testing has gone on, and they will both be able to feed some sort of resemblance of a team. And the final game between England and Georgia wasn't as big a drubbing as I was expecting. I was expecting a good 50 to 60 point win for England here. They came out on top 40-0 against Georgia at Twickenham. Really good game, which was hampered by the weather conditions. I don't think watching on TV kind of gave it justice. It looked really bad at stages. What I liked about England is obviously Georgia has a notoriously strong pack, especially in the scrums, and it just seemed that England's game plan at the start was to literally grind the Georgians down. Which they did. England took the scrum apart with Ellis Genge and Will Stewart. I just thought it was a really good, comprehensive display. Nothing too fancy from Eddie Jones's men, but just one that will be, they had a game plan, they stuck to their game plan, and they did what they had to do to get the victory. This weekend, England take on Ireland, again at Twickenham, so England have the home advantage. Not that matters too much, because obviously there are no fans, but that has to be the game of the second round, England versus Ireland. Two teams going at each other. I think both teams will need to up their game. It'd be interesting to see Eddie Jones's selection for the game. Will he bring back in Curry? Will he bring back in Underhill? Will Ollie Lawrence remain in the centre? Because I don't think Slady and Lawrence played particularly well as a centre partnership. I think a few changes will be made. You might see Jonathan Joseph back in the centre with Slady if he gets over his injury, and maybe somebody else on the wing. I'm not too sure who they can select. But yeah, that's going to be the game of the round, England versus Ireland, and that pretty much will I guess decide who goes forth from Group A, top of the group, to face the top of the group of Group B. Nevertheless, I think there's going to be some quality games all around this weekend. I literally cannot wait for them. Okay, so after a few technical difficulties that I think I've now sorted out, I've got no feedback on this call. I've not had a guest on the show for a couple of weeks, and thankfully this person has agreed to come on mainly because they feel they need to save my podcast and offer more insightful thought around rugby and what is currently going on in the game. Yes, he's here. He did say 25 episodes in he would join. But like I said, he wants to save this alien podcast, apparently. My good friend, Oliver, how are you?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, mate. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. What is your current location? Are you sat at home, feet up, brew in hand, or?
Yeah, kind of, mate. I'm out and about working today, so I'm just taking half an hour out of my very busy schedule to come and join you on your podcast. Earlier than I predicted, I know, but
well, mate, it's very kind of you. And like I said, the brown envelope will be in the post shortly to you, to help you out. Give the guys do listen. So basically, you, my brothers, and maybe some other people. We've known each other and played rugby each other since we were about 19?
Yeah, something like that. 18, 19, I think, wasn't it? Colts rugby.
Colts at Torquay. And you aren't a prop, are you? What is your preferred position?
I'm definitely not a prop. No, I'm scrum half is my preferred position and what I played most of my career. I played a bit of fly half as well, and younger years anywhere else in the backs really, but that was sort of school years and that. But scrum half has always been my favoured position.
And to be fair, you were reasonably decent. Probably, I know you're my mate, and not to big you up too much, but you were quite good. Nice little side break, decent hands.
Thank you very much. Nice to get a compliment from you.
That's okay. You get quite a lot of compliments from me, surely.
I wish I could return the favour.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. So just in terms, obviously, I did send a few questions over to you. And I had planned to go completely off script just to mess with you a bit, but let's just stick to script for a little bit. So tell me about.
I don't mind either way, mate. I don't mind either way. You do what you want.
Okay, so why rugby? Why did you choose to play rugby? What was the kind of thought process behind it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, I've not ever really considered it. I started playing rugby many moons ago at the age of 7. At sort of schoolboy rugby. At the time, I think, well, all through my school years, I was fairly into all sports, played all sports, but rugby I don't really know. I just love the game. I love the contact. I love the running aspect and the team play as well, I guess. But it sort of it drew me in right from that early age, and I've never looked back until I retired and got too old for it, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. We all unfortunately get there at some point. So. Your rugby career then, like you said, is predominantly schoolboy rugby. Are we allowed to talk about where you went to school, or is that a subject that's not allowed? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I went to a couple of private schools. I was very fortunate, and they're very rugby orientated. So yeah, I was very lucky that rugby was one of the main sports, if not the main sports, in both private schools that I went for sort of 7 till the age of like 12, 13, which is a prep school, and then a senior public school from 13 up until 18. But it was a very good schoolboy rugby career. I say I was very fortunate and played some good fun rugby with some cracking standard of players and coaching and some very good memories.
Oh, that's good to hear. And there was quite a few boys. Am I right in thinking there's a few internationals in your schoolboy team as well, weren't there?
Yeah, there was. Well, actually, my senior school, it was a school called Kelly College. So there was a few names prior to me going there. I think the sort of most famous Steve Ajomo went there. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, Bath flanker.
Yeah,
Very, very, very good. I do remember, mate. I know he's a Bath player. We'll come on
yeah.
to
Well, the other
Bath,
one
don't
was a
worry.
Bath player as well. Adebayo, or whatever is however you pronounce
Adibeo,
it.
Adibeo. That is a
Um,
tough one to say, to be fair.
yeah, they were the two sort of most famous. But yeah, there was guys who made it to certainly England schools level. A few
Yeah.
that went to sort of professional club rugby. But I don't know of it. I mean, to be honest, I don't follow the school that closely since I left. As far as leavers since I've been there, and so yeah, there's a good standard anyway, a good base of school rugby for if you choose to go on with a career of rugby afterwards.
Oh, that's good to hear. So, just looking back at those times, then would there be anything that you would do differently? Any kind of choices that you may have been offered that you wish you'd taken, or
Sorry,
do you
could you
think you're quite?
repeat the question, mate? I didn't catch that.
So, just looking back at that time again, were there any kind of different decisions you'd have made or different choices you'd have made at that point? Like, say, if you were offered something, I don't know, an opportunity to go somewhere and do rugby on a more sort of not professional, but like leading a professional.
Yeah,
Is that something you ever?
it's a tough one. I mean, overall, I'm not really one to sort of look back in general in life with hindsight and saying, oh, I could have done that, could have done this. But I think you kind of just do what's right for you at the time, don't you? But yeah, if you could go back, and I suppose if I could go back as my current self and give your younger self a bit of tips and advice and knowledge, probably just actually give rugby a proper crack and properly focus on it and put in the hard graft and all that sort of thing that needs to be done out of hours, um,
Yeah.
rather than what I did, which was coast along with. I was fortunate to have a little bit of talent and coast along with that without putting in too much of the hard graft, and then in my latter years probably focusing too much on beers and women, but rather than the
Oh
rugby.
well, there we go. The trappings of life.
Exactly.
So just in terms of from a rugby perspective again, who would be your rugby hero and why? It's okay to say me.
Well, apart from you, obviously, Gareth. You did send me this question actually, and I don't know if I've got any one that massively stands out. I think in my younger days, being a scrum half, there was obviously Gareth Edwards from the old days, um, and then the likes of Joost van der Vesthuizen and George Guigan, always very much looked up to them and respected them as scrum halves and the way they played the game.
That's
Um,
fair.
Jerry Guscott was one when I was growing up, who I kind of idolised, even though he's out of position for myself. But probably overall, even though he's a more what you could say sort of modern day and similar age to ourselves, but I think Johnny Wilkinson is someone I really respect and looked up to as what I would say a rugby hero. He's just the ultimate professional, isn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate.
And
He's
won us a World
absolute
Cup, which
quality.
is no mean feat, is it?
No mean feat at all. No mean feat at all. And lovely, lovely kind of segue there, mate. So, from mine and your perspective, we were quite lucky that in 2001 we were in Australia when the Lions toured over there.
We were indeed.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
they didn't win the series, but we had some good times. Obviously, over there. We didn't actually get to go into any of the games, but to sit in a pub in Australia and watch the test and things like that was quite quality in itself.
indeed.
And I think from my perspective, do you remember that place in Coogee Bay where I think the Lions had a midweek game against, was it the Waratahs?
Yeah, New South Wales Waratah.
Yeah, and then that was it. Duncan McRae,
Yeah, oh yeah, Ronan
absolutely
O'Gara.
pummeling Ronan
Yeah,
O'Gara
poor
and the
Ronan
shop in the
O'Gara. Yeah,
bar. That was an interesting game to watch and be surrounded by Aussies, because I think they also were a bit kind of stunned by what happened themselves. It was just an absolutely atrocious.
it was. Yeah, that one
You
definitely. That
feel,
one definitely stands. I think the other one stands out for me was in Where were we watching that one? I think it was in Brisbane. It was the game against the Brumbies with
Oh yeah,
Austin Healey
ACT.
winding up the. Was it Justin Harrison?
Yeah, yeah, it was the second row.
Yeah, that was quite
As,
fun watching the all the Aussies in the bar as well at that time, wasn't it?
yeah, no, it was
Keeping
good.
our heads
It was
down.
good. Absolutely, head right there. Am I right in thinking it was the last test that we went to the Fox Studios and watched? We had there was the biggest like cinema looking screen in a restaurant,
Yeah,
and we
that
were
was it. Yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah.
sat down at the table with this massive cinematic screen in front of us, watching the game and stuffing our faces and eating beers, drinking beers rather. Can't eat beer.
Yeah, it was. That's good memory, mate. That was a
Thank you very
good
much.
way to see that final test. Very good. We missed the first one, I think, didn't we? On the flight out or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we were flying over. We caught a couple of midweek games and then obviously the last two tests. But it was, just to be in, like I said, that atmosphere and the sea of red that was flowing through all the kind of different cities in Australia was fantastic. Um, and then on our little world tour, another leg was we've got to go to New Zealand and watch an actual game at Auckland.
Yes, we
Do you
did.
remember that
We
one?
did. Yeah, Eden Park.
Or Eden Park, and it was Auckland obviously against North Harbour, I think.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
And do you remember what happened in the
yeah.
crowd?
There was a little bit of a scuffle, wasn't there?
It was it was the first time I've ever seen a fight in a rugby crowd.
Yeah,
It was big old Maori guys literally
yeah.
beating the shit out of
We
each
were
other.
quite surprised by that. Well, not just being a fight, but yeah, like you say, in a rugby crowd, not something
Yeah,
ever experienced before, was it? But they obviously
no,
rugby is life for them, isn't it? They're fairly passionate about it,
absolutely.
aren't they?
Yes, they certainly are. And obviously, as well, just moving on to the World Cup in 2003. Unfortunately, I wasn't invited along to this. But you, no, I was. I'm joking. I was invited. I just couldn't go. But you and another good friend of ours was out there, obviously at the World Cup.
Yeah.
What was that like? I can't. You didn't get tickets for the final, did you?
No, we didn't.
But
No,
you.
we didn't. We missed. I think we missed there from memory. It was the first pool game, which I think was against South Africa over in Perth. So on the East Coast, and then we sort of flew in either during or after just after that game, but managed really lucky actually, but probably wouldn't be so lucky getting the tickets these days. But we managed to get tickets for every single group game and the quarters and the semis to follow England the whole way. The only one we obviously couldn't get tickets for was the final, but we had a pretty good second best because they sort of put up a big marquee tent literally right outside the stadium and had it on big screens with bar obviously bars and everything there. So that was a pretty good second best. I managed to sneak in the ground afterwards as well to see the trophy lifted, which was pretty lucky and sneaky.
I was going to say I did. That was I was right in thinking that you did actually manage to just get in, didn't you? After
Yeah,
somehow.
we did. I think security it was just completely all over the place. We just managed to blag our way in. I think we actually picked up some tickets on the floor. People had obviously dropped on the way out where Aussies, angry Australians or whatever supporters who had left. We picked up tickets off the floor on the way and just blagged our way in and managed to watch Jono and the boys actually lift the trophy, which was
Oh, mate,
pretty
what an
impressive.
awesome
Yeah,
experience! Absolutely. And obviously for me and you, I've mentioned on this podcast before. You support Bath, I support Leicester. Quite a significant rivalry between the two teams over the years, and a lot of banter between us.
indeed.
We've also been to quite a few games together at the Rec, couple at Welford Road, and obviously we were there that night when the Leicester team beat South Africa, who were
Yeah,
touring at and we were in the new stand there, which was quite cool. And we've also been to Twickenham a few times. I think the first international game we went to together was when England beat Australia, and was it either Bolsh or Dan Luger scored that try in the corner at injury time? Do you remember?
I do. Yeah, I think it was Dan Luger, wasn't it? From memory.
Yeah, there's a chip ahead, wasn't there? But was it Bolsh did the chip, and then Luke's kind of put the ball down behind him. He slightly overrun it and got in at the corner.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was sort of the within a couple of years prior to the World Cup, wasn't it? I would sort of say
Yeah,
201, something like that. 201, 202, was it?
yeah, it was, and that was a fantastic night as well. So we have, like, I guess my point is, we have, obviously we're good mates, best mates. Well, I think I'm your best mate. I don't know, you might think differently. But we have been to a lot of games together, and obviously at the moment with the whole COVID and pandemic bollocks, we've not
That's rubbish.
not been able to do anything at all. And I guess when it's all kind of said and done, and crowds and fans are allowed back in stadiums, if we could choose one game for us to go and watch, what would you choose?
That's got to be Bath Leicester, isn't it?
Absolutely, but where? The Wreck or Welford Road?
Oh well, for me the Wreck, but I'd be happy to watch them anywhere, to be honest, mate. With the lack of
Yeah,
rugby we've had.
just to, absolutely. And I guess, like I said, I originally last episode, I'd kind of chatted about the Premiership and my thoughts around what might happen, and I was going to finish that off this week on my own. But obviously, you've kindly come on. So last week I chatted about Leicester and how I actually unfortunately do feel they could be relegated this year. To put your non-biased kind of head aside, do you think that's a fair assessment of them at the moment, especially with the fact they've now got rid of Jordan Murphy, like, what, 2 weeks before the kickoff of the new season?
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Oh yeah, we obviously do have a lot of banter about it being rival team supporters going back many years, like you say. But no, I mean, it's tough. Leicester have obviously going for a really, really, really tough patch, aren't they, over the last few years? But I don't know. I think the Jordan Murphy thing. I think that's probably personal view. That's probably was always going to happen at some stage once old Borthwick came on the scene.
Yeah, do you know what? I didn't think it would,
Didn't
and I
you?
don't know why I didn't think it would. I guess I just saw Jordan Murphy and Borthers as quite a good combination to bring us out of the kind of doldrums of the basement battles at the moment. And I just think I kind of thought they'd work quite well together. And I know there was a lot of stuff on Twitter and social media about, did nobody see this coming? And I was like, hands up, I didn't see it coming. I just kind of thought, it's for me, they used Murphy a little bit to plug a gap, and they didn't give him an opportunity to establish himself with Borthers. He inherited a shit team. To be fair, that's being blunt from a Leicester fan. They were shit. They were directionless, and obviously all the stuff that was going on with COVID and players leaving and all that kind of stuff. I just thought they would have utilised somebody that's been with the club for 25 years, their experience, knowledge, and work together with Borthers. But obviously, what do I know? That's why you're on the show, to talk more rugby than I do.
Well, I've got just as much minimal knowledge about rugby as you, actually, mate. Well, maybe a little bit more, but no, yeah. Well, I sort of thought once Borthwick was on the scene that maybe uh, Jordan Murphy might go at some stage. I think really just because um, knowing knowing what I do know of Borthwick, and obviously he's come from being understudy to Eddie Jones in the international scene, hasn't he? But I
Yeah,
think he's probably looking to completely sort of reshape the club um, and really take onus of that. Be the main man, isn't it? So that's why I
yeah,
thought maybe Jordan Murphy might go at some stage because if they didn't sort of have the same inline view or work together 100% well, then there's only one of them that will go, wouldn't it? But
yeah,
that'd be
absolutely.
interesting to see how it goes. I mean,
Yeah,
Borthwick's obviously the best signing Leicester have done for several years.
a long time.
Excuse
Yeah,
me, but
absolutely. So just go on, mate.
yeah, just
Sorry.
I was going to say I'd be interested to see. I think he can turn the club around, but I think it's going to take a few years. Yeah, the
Yeah.
squad is not strong at the end of the day, is it? So I
No.
don't. I
No.
personally don't think you'll be relegated this season,
Oh,
but I think you'll be in the battle.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the bottom four, last week I kind of said it would be Leicester, Worcester, Northampton, and London Irish all kind of fighting it out for relegation. Um, but then I kind of thought, will it get relegated? Will anybody get relegated? Because the championship's not even potentially starting, is it? I don't think. So there's that kind of little hope, but I can't see the Saracens being left out in the Championship for too long either. I'm sure they'll want to get back in as quick as possible. But do you kind of think those would be the four teams that are fighting it out at the bottom?
Leicester, Irish, Worcester, Northampton. You say? Yeah, odds on. I would say. I mean, Newcastle.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Newcastle as well. Sorry, those would be the bottom five.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's probably the bottom five. Northampton, you wouldn't necessarily normally put there, but they're struggling, aren't they? For whatever reason, they're struggling. Well, certainly the last half or coming out of lockdown, they struggled massively, didn't they? But
yeah, absolutely.
And potentially, well, I don't like to say it, but Gloucester.
Oh, now I was thinking Gloucester would be more mid-table, just above them, maybe pushing for top four, or definitely pushing for Championship, European Champion, and Cup rugby.
Yeah, it's just I think they'll be mid-table, but it's if you get into the bottom of the mid-table, it's just such a tough league now, isn't it? You cut 2-3 games going the wrong way, and you're in the relegation battle, and vice versa. 2 or 3 good results, and you're challenging for top four or whatever, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, from our perspective, then we're thinking that you're looking at the top kind of teams this year again. Obviously, being Exeter, Wasps. I'm going to say Bath will be a top team, and I've actually put £10 bet on them to reach the final.
Reach the final.
It went against.
You love throwing your money away, don't you? You love throwing your.
I know. I don't know. Well, hang on, you're the Bath supporter. You shouldn't be saying that. You should be like, yeah, absolutely. But I think also Sale are obviously going to push hard this year. Bristol are going to push hard. But I don't know if you knew this. I only picked this up on a different podcast. So my understanding is that the international players can only play in it's either 4 or 5 rounds of Premiership games within the first 13 weeks of the season.
Okay, so that 4 or 5 rounds? That's basically the first half of the season, then. So yeah, I didn't know that, but yeah, I suppose that makes sense because you've got actual international games for the first. What is it? 3?
Well, you've got the autumn. Yeah, you've got the autumn nations. Obviously, that's going to finish off, and then the Six Nations in January. Then they've got their rest time.
Makes sense, wouldn't it?
So it's going to be. It could be that could make it a lot more interesting, and it could change a lot more things. Is what I was thinking.
So, who do you think is going to benefit?
Well, I think I would say let's go top 4 predictions. So I'm going to go Exeter top.
Yep.
Followed by Sale second. Wasps, I think, will finish 4th, and I think Bath will actually finish 3rd, because I don't think Bath lose too many players.
Really?
To international. Well, who are they going to lose? They're going to lose the second row Yules and Will Stewart.
And Abano.
Is that
Tom?
Yeah, but he's not figured.
Tom Dunn.
Yeah,
Tom Dunn.
So he might be. Yeah, he might.
Sam Underhill.
Might lose him. So 3. Yeah, I'm
not saying
Underhill at the moment.
But he still goes for international.
True, but I think what I'm kind of saying is I think Bath have got quite a lot of strength and depth this year, and I think they're gonna push home.
I hope you're right, mate. To be honest, yeah, it's good. Bath certainly the last season, but the last couple of seasons, they're building, they're on the upwards, and the coaching setup, the whole sort of culture at the club seems to, as in off the pitch as well, seems to be vastly improved, which has been a big failing for several years. And yeah, the strength in depth in the squad, like you said, is probably the strongest it's been for several years. So fingers crossed you don't get too many injuries and stuff, but they will be able to cope hopefully with the international, even though they've got lots of internationals. But
yeah. So would you agree that Bristol miss out again and finish 5th, or are you thinking there's a bit of a difference? Are you thinking Bristol over Wasps? Or...
I don't know. Yeah, Wasps. I'm not sure about Wasps. They did fantastically, didn't they? Coming out, obviously, everyone knows coming out of the lockdown, after the lockdown period. But it's one of those. I've just got a gut feeling that they won't be able to keep that going for a whole season or a whole another season. But I might be totally doing them injustice with Blackett. Is it Blackett, the coach? Because he's obviously done some amazing stuff there and really turned them around, hasn't he? Certainly mindset and
Yeah.
mentality the way they're playing. But yeah, I've got a gut feeling they ain't going to quite do it. I fancy Bristol to make the top four personally.
That's fair.
So
That's okay. And I think we didn't mention Harlequins. Do we think it's going to be Harlequins' year this year, or are they just going to be mid-table again? They've obviously lost Rob Shaw and a few other players, I think, and don't seem to have brought
Rob Shaw's a
many
big
back
loss,
in.
isn't he?
Yeah, he's loving it over in America with all the money, isn't he?
But they've got so much talent in that squad, but it's just it's kind of like Bathworth for several years. It's just not having the consistency on the results, isn't it? So I can't see that changing, to be honest. So yeah. I would put them mid-table.
No, that's cool. Okay. So I'm very aware that we're up to about 26 minutes now in this conversation, and you probably are busy. But I do want to just try and do a little bit of spying. Obviously, with the start of the Gallagher Premiership is also the start of our fantasy rugby team, which you obviously are the king of at the moment. Champion, yeah, well deserved. I did say I was humble.
You were very humble. Me not so much.
Not so much you, but I am very keen to get my crown back. How are you playing it this year, mate? Are you going to give anything away, or
no? In all honesty, I haven't even looked at it that closely. See, I just tend to do it sort of 5 minutes before kickoff each week and just wing it, really. But it's just natural skills, Gareth. Natural management skills and all that. No.
So what you're saying is all the hours of hard work that I've been putting in analysing players and team selections has been pointless.
No, just an aside. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think the actual season is a weird one this year, isn't it? Because normally you'd have all the new signings and it'd be a proper sort of off season and pre-season. It's a bit you come in as a bit of an unknown with all the teams each at the start of the season, but it's this season's a little bit of almost a follow-on from last season, isn't it? I think the start of this season will be, but certainly with the signings and stuff, the squads are pretty much staying the same. There might be a couple of new additions, but other than that, no, I'm not giving anything else away.
That's fair enough, mate.
Nice try, though.
We'll see what happens in the first game then. That's all right. Don't forget there are 2 games on Friday night, so make sure you've got your selections in.
I won't forget that.
Hope you do. I want that crown back. Listen, mate, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Obviously, if the ratings go up, I might have to ask you to come on again if people, like to hear our patter of banter, however crap it is.
We can go down with our banter, mate.
But yeah, I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much for coming on, and obviously, you'll be able to listen to yourself when the episode's released next week.
Well, thank you for having me on, Gareth.
All right, more than welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will do. Sat on my sofa in my pants, doing nothing. Standard day. Anyway, mate, listen, take care.
Okay, mate. Thanks a lot. Cheers, then. Bye.
No worries. Bye, mate. So that is all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed listening to episode 7 of my rugby podcast. Obviously, like I've said previously, we are sponsored by I Spy Surveys, the go-to specialist survey and inspection company in Exeter. Continued support from them is fantastic. You can also get me on Twitter at the Top 2 Inches Rugby Podcast. Like I said before, leaving messages, let's have a chat. What is also good is that you can get me on various platforms such as YouTube, Anchor, Apple Podcast and Spotify. I noticed recently that the numbers of listeners had dropped, but then did actually rise again. So, I'm quite happy to carry on just chatting away, talking rubbish, giving a little bit of insight into rugby, which obviously my mate Ollie says I have none, but never mind, people do listen, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for listening once again, and I will see you next time.